Hello again, everybody. Welcome into Gamecock Central Radio. Emerson Phillips and Wes Mitchell with you today. Devastating news, Wes. There's just no two ways about it for Gamecock football yesterday. We find out that second-team All-SEC linebacker Skai Moore will miss the entire 2016 football season. He's got an injured disc in his neck. He's going to have surgery this Friday. Level 1 fusion required. No contact for at least 6 months. The good news is that a full recovery is expected, but Skai Moore out for the season, Wes, and this is a devastating blow for the start of the Will Muschamp era.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think when you look at Skai Moore, the thing that comes to mind with him is the word playmaker. You know, I think that if you're going to win SEC football games, you have to have these guys that are playmakers, that are difference makers. You know, your team is sort of made up. Most teams have a lot of guys who are sort of, your average starter that is a good player and can kind of do his job, and that the coaches feel good about. If you have a pretty solid football team. But then I think to actually win a bunch of games in this league, because you're going to have so many close games, you got to have that guy that's going to go make a play for you. How many games did South Carolina win where you can look back and say Skai Moore made a big game-changing type play? I mean, they obviously don't win the North Carolina game last year in the opener without Skai Moore making a play. He had some huge plays against Vanderbilt in that win as well. You look throughout his career, just a bona fide playmaker, has great coverage skills at the linebacker spot, has great instincts, knows how to get to the football. He's one of those football magnet type guys. So, and he's led the team in tackles for 3 straight years. So, there's really no sugarcoating what the loss means. Obviously, from a broad career spectrum, it's great news that this is not career ending for Scott personally. But as far as South Carolina goes for 2016. Obviously, a major loss.
Yeah, Wes, it's really hard to articulate, how much Skai Moore potentially means to the football team this year as we transition to a new head coach. And, one of the real bright spots of the offseason was the fact that Skai Moore elected to return for what was scheduled to be his senior year here in 2016. I mean, he's the leader of the defense, the leader of the football team, and he was going to be very heavily relied upon this year, not just in terms of X's and O's, but from a leadership standpoint. And the loss of Skai Moore is really bad news to start the summer. We don't want to dwell too much on the negative, and certainly our thoughts and prayers are with Skai Moore, wishing him a speedy and full recovery. And Coach Muschamp commented about it yesterday, said that he is expected to make a full recovery, and the plan will be to redshirt Skai Moore in 2016, and hopefully he'll return for the 2017 season. Apparently, Wes, the injury initially took place in 2015, and apparently he re-aggravated it during weight room work here in 2016?
I believe that's right. I haven't heard the exact timetable on how that happened. I know that they were hoping that it was going to be something that did not require surgery. And then the last few weeks, or last couple of weeks, really, I think you started to hear some rumblings that there might be something else there. Hearing some rumors, hearing some different things going around. But it's one of those things on my end where, especially when you're dealing with an injury and a neck injury, something that serious, you don't really want to put it out there or report it unless you know for sure. And then obviously Will Muschamp confirmed it for pretty much everybody on Tuesday. So, yeah, just a big loss for South Carolina. Even though I do think if you were going to pick one spot where you'd want to lose your playmaker, not that you'd ever want to, though, it would be the linebacker spot, I think.
All right, we're going to talk more about the linebacker position, who's going to have to step up in Skai Moore's absence now. Wes, a little bit more on Skai Moore here. He was set to move into the top 10 Gamecocks career list in tackles. You mentioned he led the team in tackles each of the last 3 years, had 111 stops a year ago, and needed just 24 tackles to move into the top 10 all-time Gamecock tackling list. And he's third on the Gamecocks career list for interceptions. I've maintained for a couple of years now that he's one of the best pass coverage linebackers in the country, I believe, and this is a big loss for the Gamecock defense. So who's going to have to step up at linebacker, Wes? Who's going to step in and try to fill the shoes of Skai Moore?
Yeah, well, I don't know if anyone can be Skai Moore. He's such a unique type player, and you don't see that coverage ability that he brings to the linebacker spot very often. So these guys are going to have to be their own guys, but I do think, that there's already some depth at the linebacker position. I think you look, as far as playmakers go, you look at how much Bryson Allen Williams has been bragged on this offseason by Will Muschamp. I look at him, I say, this is the guy that's going to have to sort of be the playmaker for this bunch. He's going to sort of have to go make things happen. They had talked about using Bryson at the Buck linebacker, or the Buck sort of defensive end spot, hybrid linebacker spot, and some strong side linebacker. I do wonder with the loss of Skai how much, how much of the Buck he's still going to be able to play, or is he going to be needed, sort of at one of those other inside, more true linebacker spots. I think that's an interesting storyline to watch. But then, you look at sort of some of the veterans. You look at T.J. Holloman, who's never quite, he's not made the same level of plays as Skai Moore in his career, but he's played a ton. Sort of is one of those guys that seems to be in the right spot and is a veteran leader of this bunch, a hardworking kid. He's going to have a big season. I think Jonathan Walton's going to have to take another step forward as a senior. And then, there's sort of some wild card guys. Lorenz Bryant was about as highly rated out of high school as anybody on this entire football team. And it just has not clicked for him to this point. So you look at him in a new system. And then Sherrod Pittman, the redshirt freshman, he was a four-star guy, had offers from Auburn, had an offer from Muschamp's Florida team, really had offers from all over the Southeast, injured his leg in high school, so he missed all of last season. I think this sort of opens the door for him to get on the field potentially. And then, hey, if guys get banged up, it really wouldn't be a shock to me if at some point this season we look out there and the local guy, Richland Northeast, T.J. Brunson, it wouldn't be a shock to me if at some point he maybe found his way on the field. It's just going to sort of depend on how those positions play out, who steps up, and how everybody fits into this new system. I think that's the big thing here we don't know, is we don't know exactly what it's going to look like under this scheme, because these guys will be playing in their third defensive scheme in as many years.
Huge blow for Gamecock football with the announcement yesterday that Skai Moore will miss the entire 2016 season with a herniated disc in his neck, scheduled for surgery this Friday in Charlotte. So, Wes, we felt like linebacker was an area of strength for the Gamecock defense, and that was due in large part to the fact that Skai Moore would be leading that group, and what figured to be, relatively young and inexperienced Gamecock defense just got a little bit more so with the news that Skai Moore will not play this year. So while he will be out, that could present opportunities for other players to step up, and that is a positive.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we'll see. They've got all summer to try to figure that out, and then they'll go from there. And, hopefully Skai can get back to 100%, get back to where he was, and return for a big 2017 and hopefully go get drafted.
Yeah, interesting that Moore considered going pro this year and opted to come back. Tough hand being dealt to Skai Moore and to the Gamecock football team, but that does not slow the clock on preparations for the 2016 season. 92 days till kickoff now. Gamecock Central Radio, Emerson Phillips with Wes Mitchell. You can download the Gamecock Central Radio app on the App Store and on Google Play, and you can listen to Gamecock Central Radio anywhere that you receive cell phone service. To subscribe to the podcast, search for Gamecock Central Radio on iTunes, SoundCloud, and other popular services, or just visit radio.GamecockCentral.com. So summer workouts continuing, Wes. We continue to look forward to the start of the 2016 football season, and we'll have a lot of more information coming out on that here in the coming days and weeks on Gamecock Central Radio. And another big story involving Gamecock sports right now this week is that the Gamecock baseball team is hosting regional tournament action. Gamecock's first regional playoff game will take place at 7 o'clock this Friday night. South Carolina and Rhode Island, and it's Duke and UNC Wilmington in this Columbia Regional, and the winner of the Columbia Regional gets the winner of the Clemson Regional in the Supers next week. So college baseball, a hot topic right now in the capital city and across the Palmetto State.
Yeah, absolutely. Postseason ball returns to Columbia. That's pretty exciting. Obviously, postseason ball in Clemson as well. I think it sets up either really good or really bad for South Carolina. It could be a really, really big opportunity for Chad Holbrook to silence some of his doubters. Obviously, the alternative would be that his doubters get a little more ammo. So I'm curious to see how South Carolina handles it. The kid that's starting for Rhode Island, the lefty, has outstanding numbers. I think you look at these regionals, Nobody at this time of the year that's in this field has a bad baseball team. Everybody's got a solid team, and most of these 4 seeds are going to come at you with some stud. Most of them that they've gotten to this point, even though they're a small conference school, have a pitcher, a frontline guy that can get the job done. So, I think for South Carolina, it's going to be a little bit of a potentially ugly game on Friday, but at the same time, I doubt that Rhode Island has seen many guys the caliber of Clark Smith either. So, if you're South Carolina, you look to really just shut them down, play good defense, and then scratch across some runs and win the game, because those schools obviously probably aren't used to seeing the atmosphere they're going to see in Columbia either. I think it sets up quite interestingly for South Carolina, and we'll see if they can get the job done. But these things are it's very, very key, to just go ahead and win the first 2 in these regionals. It's very, very hard. It depletes your pitching staff. It's very, very difficult to come from the losers bracket, if you lose one of the first 2. So you basically need to find a way to win the first 2. Then you're pitching your third guy, against your opponent's, 4th or 5th guy, depending on what they had to do to get to that point. So, just one of these things where, I think if you're South Carolina and you're Chad Holbrook, you want your guys to be loose, to just go take care of business and let the chips fall where they may.
An exciting time for Gamecock baseball with the Columbia Regional set to get underway on Friday. South Carolina missed the field last year and lost at home in a regional round 2 years ago. So the Gamecocks looking to get back on top in college baseball. Had a very good regular season, but struggled a little bit down the stretch and lost a couple of games in Hoover at the SEC tournament, 2-Q. So a chance to wipe the slate clean and get back to playing winning baseball. Friday night, 7 o'clock, South Carolina and Rhode Island. And, of course, earlier in the day Friday, Game 1 of the Columbia Regional with 2-seed UNC Wilmington taking on the 3-seed Duke. Emerson Phillips, Wes Mitchell with you here on Gamecock Central Radio. Wes, the bad news with Skai Moore really paramount this week, and I thought it was interesting that a lot of football players, not just on the Gamecock team, but from other teams across the country, reaching out to Skai Moore on Twitter yesterday, giving him support, offering their love. One of those was Deshaun Watson, the quarterback at Clemson.
Yeah, very, very, very. I think it just speaks to what type of personality and what type of player Skai Moore is when you see stuff like that. And, that's actually a pretty good story idea, Emerson. I may go out there and see if I can't gather some of those, put them all, all in a story, just to sort of put them all in one place. But, obviously this kid's done so much on the field for South Carolina that people take notice when something like this happens.
No question. A lot of respect across the country for Gamecock linebacker Skai Moore. So we'll continue to keep you updated on this story and a whole lot more here on Gamecock Central Radio. Wes, thanks as always for being with us.
Yes, sir. We'll talk to you soon, Emerson.
He's Wes Mitchell, and I'm Emerson Phillips, and this is Gamecock Central Radio. Thank you for joining us.